Good morning to you, friend. Welcome back to the Morning Minute Meditation. Glad you've dropped by today. The heart of the matter of humanity is the matter of the heart of humanity. Our heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I do know that with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. I do understand that. Yet at the same time, I do understand that the depravity of man runs deep, and it will always be an issue with him. Some of you have heard of Dr. Harry Ironside. Dr. Ironside was one of the most prolific preachers of the 20th century. Dr. Ironside has written many books, and you ought to avail yourself of the information contained therein. Dr. Ironside was the pastor of Moody Church from 1929 to 1948, and he preached the funeral of one Billy Sunday. He was concerned about the humility of his heart. He did not feel like he was as humble as he needed to be, and he felt like he had a problem with pride. Someone suggested to Dr. Ironside, after he had spoken to them about it, that he put a sandwich board over his neck and that he get on the streets of Chicago, Illinois, and began to just proclaim the scriptures and street preach for a while. They suggested that that would help him with his humility. And so Dr. Ironside did that. He went out and hung a sandwich board over his head, and he quoted scriptures and preached scriptures and just embarrassed his flesh as he walked up and down the streets preaching about the gospel of Christ and the Word of God. Dr. Ironside later reflected that when he came back to his office and took his sandwich board off and sat behind his desk, he said the thought that arose within his mind was simply this: I bet there isn't a man in Chicago who's willing to do what I just did. You see, it never helped his problem at all. The truth is, sin is a problem from the greatest of us to the least of us. It is a deep-seated problem in this Adamic nature that you and I live in, and will always be an issue. Therefore, we must be submitted to Christ and walk in the Spirit, not fulfilling the lust of a sinful Adamic, wicked flesh that we live in. It was the Lord who made this statement right before he flooded the earth in Genesis chapter number 6, when he found Noah, of course, walking with the Lord and living in the grace of the Lord. In Genesis 6:5, God said this, that God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that the imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And so God wiped out the world by way of a flood and saved Noah and his household. Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's wife, and the wives of Shem, Ham, and Japheth were saved and spared. In Genesis 8, when they got off of the ark and made a sacrifice unto the Lord, here's what the Lord said again. And the Lord smelled the sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake. For the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. God said, I have flooded the world, wiped out sin and sinners, and every capacity to engage in sin has been wiped from the culture. And yet the problem still remains. Man in his heart is evil continually. That's why we need to be saved by the grace of God. And then after that we are saved, walk in the Spirit, not fulfilling the lust of the flesh. Consider these things and have yourself a grand day.